Let's get this, Jack. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, Sunday edition, This Week in Sports. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Zodiac TV, on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, share our Facebook pages, subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and our website is nessp.info for all info on all our shows, guest stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Together, we're bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac.
So, Jack, today, as we go through this week in sports, we'll have some really big guests on. We got Robert Butler from SportsScope coming in as he does every Sunday, and we'll go over a variety of topics with him. We also got our last update, our Connecticut Falcons update, as they played their last home game of the season yesterday. We got Coach Tom Chesky, and we got a linebacker with a nickname called Chucky, who will be on with us. And, Jack, two-time Super Bowl champion, Cowboy defensive end legend, Jim Jeffco will be joining us too. And Jim was not only a great defensive end in the National Football League, but also coaching the XFL. And there's some news about the USFL, and we'll probably talk to Robert and him about that today. So, folks, we got some really great guests for you today. And we're going to start off with this week's in sports, hitting some of the main topics that happened this week. So we're going to start with the NBA playoffs, Jack. And the Lakers and the Heat, both out. Last year, the Lakers won the championship, and the Miami Heat won the division championship. So they're both out, and considered by most that, Davis and LeBron are probably the two best, or I should say, one of the five best basketball players in the league. And they won these games in a bubble, and so did Miami, Jack. And this year, with full seasons, both teams didn't make it into the top four, both knocked out before the semis. Now, is it because last year was such a short season and Miami got hot, the Lakers were kind of healthy and they didn't have the full season to go through, or was it just that they were that good last year, Jack?
I don't think the shortened season had a bearing on it because I was down in Florida and I saw a lot of Miami Heat games last year, and they were very inconsistent leading into the playoffs, and then they put it together. And we know what the Lakers were capable of doing last year. But listen, that's great for the NBA. It shows a certain parity that the Lakers could be meeting the Heat in the finals last year, and both of them get eliminated in the first round this year. I mean, I think that's good for basketball in a sense.
Well, Jack, there's something to be said for rivalries, and the big bad boys on the court who always win. I'll give you examples like when the Celtics were winning a lot, or when the Lakers were winning a lot. People love to root against these teams, so it might be good in one aspect that it's different teams. But there's a lot of attention given to certain teams, right? And the Lakers, I mean, they might be the most popular basketball team in the NBA. Miami is from, Miami Heat with Pat Riley is a very interesting team, a lot more interesting than maybe the Phoenix Suns or the Milwaukee Bucks. So is it good for the NBA, Jack, that we don't have one of these favorites in there?
Not ultimately for ratings, no. Okay, as far as the Heat go, it doesn't matter. I mean, the glamour series would have been the Nets against the Lakers in the finals. You have the storyline, Kyrie and LeBron going for the fifth ring, Durant having a point to prove, wanting to show he's the best player in the game, James Harden trying to win his first NBA championship, West Coast Los Angeles, East Coast New York. That would have been the storyline. I mean, the ratings would have gone through the roof. Now what we're basically looking at are teams who could get in, like the Utah Jazz, not big for ratings. The Phoenix Suns, not big for ratings. The LA Clippers, not bad with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, even though not quite as good as the Lakers, but it's the LA market, still not bad. And of course, if the Nets get in, that's going to be great for ratings. But if the Nets don't get in, Sixers, not bad, but not on the same level as the Nets as far as ratings, giving the league the worldwide exposure that it really wants. But I'm saying for the parity of the sport, seeing the Lakers and Heat not make it past the first round after getting to the finals last year says a lot about the competition in the NBA. The way no team has a stranglehold quite on things at the time.
Okay. The 76ers, one of the favorites to win the East Division, right? And, with Embiid being hurt a lot, and what I mean by a lot is that over the past, it's not just this year, Jack. He gets hurt, he goes down, and of course, the 76ers aren't as good without Embiid. So do you give Atlanta a puncher's chance against the 76ers? And to take it a step further, is Atlanta the Miami of last year?
They very well could be. If Embiid's in, I don't think the Hawks will walk over for the Sixers. I still think you're looking at a 6-game series. If the Hawks still win a couple of games, even with Embiid in there, with Embiid out, it gets to be interesting, very, very interesting, where Atlanta could conceivably upset the Sixers or take them to a 7th game when anything could happen at all. But you kind of wonder a little bit with Embiid. I'm not doubting that he's hurt, but the time he takes off, is it really necessary? Is he getting ready for the playoffs? Let's see come playoff time in a big, big game whether or not he'd be able to play or not, because it's all on the line in the playoffs. All on the line in the playoffs. You could take off a game now and then, but if your team is 2 games apiece, so you're down 3-2, then it's crunch time. You have to absolutely be in there. And we mentioned the Nets a little while ago. I don't know were you going to mention James Harden's hamstring pull. That's a major concern. Major concern. When you re-injure yourself, it means the rehab has to start all over again. They're taking an MRI. Let's see what happens. It could be a mild hamstring strain, meaning he could conceivably be much better in a few days, or it could be something serious. And I'm going to tell you, as a runner / now jogger, I've gotten those hamstring pulls as I've gotten older. And it is difficult to get out there to even jog very slowly. You got to move around at a snail's pace. You got to be very careful not to pick the pace up. And in the NBA, with those quick sprints up and down the court, I mean, you're under serious risk of re-injuring it. And if James Harden does go half speed to protect the injury, of course, he'd be compromised as a player. But let's see what this MRI says. We hope for the best. It would be a shame if James Harden's season ended this way.
Well, back to Philly for a second, all right? He's got Embiid has a problem with his knee. So it's a meniscus. I think that's what they said, a tear in the meniscus. He can play. They've played with this injury before, as they have with hamstrings. I mean, they got the state-of-the-art equipment there. The doctors do anyway with the teams. But even if he can play and he's not 100%, say he's 50 or 60%, that's still going to affect the 76ers and still would affect the Nets.
I think Doc Rivers has to do something he hasn't really done this year, to my knowledge. He's got to change the makeup of the starting lineup, because if Embiid is compromised, he's only 50, 60% of himself. You want him basically to concentrate on scoring and playing some defense, obviously. But I think you'd want Dwight Howard in there, next to him. Now, would it slow down the offense? It would a bit. But Dwight Howard, who's had a great job, has done a great job rebounding this year. You give him more minutes, meaning more rebounds, and Embiid can pace himself a little more. Concentrate on certain other things, scoring, basic defense. So I think it's something for Doc Rivers to consider if Embiid is indeed hurt enough where he is compromised.
So we move on to and you talked about the Nets a little bit, and they won last night even without James Harden. So let's talk about the Nets, which I really haven't got into anyway. Say the Nets go on, they win the championship, but I want you to think about this for a second, Jack. Do you think that's good for the NBA? If a team can just at the last minute, which because they haven't played that long together, can take three superstars and put them on a team and go to the championship. I mean, what does that actually do for the NBA? If LeBron picks up Dillard and say Lukic, say, halfway through the season, and they form a quick team and they go to championship, what is that? Is that something that we should want to happen in the NBA, Jack?
Yeah, well, I mean, why not? Look, the last model of guys really truly getting together that won championships because of that to a large degree was when LeBron went to the Miami Heat. Chris Bosh went to the Miami Heat to join Dwayne Wade. But you want to know something, Mac? They were together 4 years and they won 2 NBA championships. They weren't totally dominant. I mean, and one of the NBA championships they won is because the San Antonio Spurs somehow let the game get away, the 6th game of, the one series. And then the next year, San Antonio, of course, restored order and they beat the Heat in 5 games. And then LeBron went to the Cavaliers and Miami's run ended. It happens all the time. Players try to join one another, and it goes on all over the league. Look, Paul George and Kyrie Leonard join one another with the Clippers. Anthony Davis joined LeBron with the Lakers. Let players join one another if they want and form this union. If one team had a monopoly on the whole thing, then I'd say, okay, that's a bit unfair. But it's fair game for every player to join every player. Look, James Harden wouldn't have come over to the Nets had Houston acquired, let's say, a Kevin Durant, okay? He wouldn't have requested a trade. I mean, these guys, to their credit, and I don't condemn them for it, they get frustrated. They want to win a championship like Damian Lillard. He has been a very loyal Portland Trailblazer. He just doesn't see them taking the next step. Now, the Portland Trailblazers just fired their coach, Terry Stotts, after 9 years. He had success as a coach of the Trailblazers, but they couldn't quite take the ultimate step, and it gets to be very frustrating. So Portland needs that just one player. Everyone wants to win, Mac. Everyone wants to take the next step, and I don't blame them for it. And they're on the contract. They're entitled to move on as well.
Well, what I'm saying, Jack, is not so much joining another team and building another team, whether they want to move or not, I don't care about. What I'm saying is that the Nets didn't play all year together hardly at all, those three on the court at one time. So if they don't have to play together and have a chemistry to ultimately win the championship, what does that say about the NBA team? So what I'm saying is that what they're basically doing with the Nets right now are saying, listen, we really didn't play as a team that much, us three together, but we still can beat you just with our three. And I think, in my opinion anyway, that kind of hurts the sport because everything that goes with the NBA has to do with any team sport, Jack, is chemistry, working together and trying to build some kind of team together, whether you're a star or not. Well, if the Nets win it, that's not necessarily true. And so what does that say about the NBA is all I'm saying, Jack.
What it says is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are great players. They're superstar players. And the Nets still have to go out there and earn it. But you want to know something? This is the second year that Durant and Irving have been together, but Durant was hurt all of last year. But he was working out with the team. Irving was hurt a good part of the year last year, but he was a member of the team. And listen, Mac, I mean, when you have superstar players, sometimes talent overrides everything else. I mean, you hear the term the cream rises to the top. And that's what happens with the Nets. I mean, you have three phenomenal talents there. But I will say this. If James Harden cannot return and Joel Embiid is healthy for the Sixers, it's going to be a dogfight for the Nets to get into the finals. I mean, they're not getting by the Sixers that easy. I know you picked the Bucks to beat the Nets.
First, they got to beat the Bucks, right? First, they got to beat
right. And the Bucks let a golden opportunity slip away with Harden going out early in the game.
Agreed.
This was their opportunity to grab a quick game, get off to a 1-0 lead, and with Harden out, they could believe they would do it. But Giannis played a great game. Chris Middleton's shooting was horrendous.
Yeah,
had he shot better, that could have made the difference. Listen, Blake Griffin stepped up for the Nets yesterday. He was like the Blake Griffin of old. He was scoring. He was grabbing rebounds. And your complementary players outside your stars have to produce for the team to win. Like Blake Griffin, even though he was a starter, a quiet one at that, but, he showed us he was kind of like the Blake Griffin of old for one night, at least. And, with the Bucks, Robin Lopez produced nicely, but some of the other guys, in their starting lineup and their reserves didn't. And the Bucks missed out on a golden opportunity. If they were to win the series, I believe they needed to grab yesterday's game. They didn't do it. And I think the Nets, even if Harden doesn't return this series, are the better team and, ultimately going to beat the Bucks because Giannis can only carry the Bucks so far. We've seen that in the past.
That's true, Jack, but I still think Milwaukee is going to come out on top. I just think that. And I agree with Pickles. The NBA is a gun for hire league now. And that's not, to me, that's not saying too much about the sport. That's my only problem with it. So,
yeah.
So let's get to the NHL, Jack. Playoffs, the Islanders have a big win last night, right? They tied the series, and it's going to be a dogfight. It was a big win, though. It wasn't a one-score win. The Islanders kind of broke through a little bit. But I think maybe the biggest story is the Canadiens, right? They're the fourth seeded. Nobody expected them really to do anything. They thought Toronto would easily win that. They go up against the Jets. The Jets, I think, second in the league. That atrocious hit might have inspired them even more, or maybe deflated the Jets a little bit, Jack. That hit doesn't only impact with that guy being taken out, doesn't only impact Montreal, but does it impact the Jets at all?
I'm going to tell you, Mac. The Canadians are masquerading. They're not really a hockey team. To me, they're a soccer team. They get a goal, go up 1-0, and their defensemen are big, burly, husky guys who just protect the goal. They protect the net. They have a layer of defense, for their goalie, and they don't skate that quick. Something about them. The Canadians they get a lead, and they have a way of holding it. I mean, they're like really old-fashioned tough. It's like a wall, that you just can't get by, watching the games. I mean, Montreal Canadian hockey games are not as exciting as, let's say, watching the Islanders and the Bruins flying up and down the ice. And they've won, they won their last game 1-0. And the Winnipeg Jets just can't score. They can't even get a lot of really, truly good shots on goal. And now they're going back to Montreal. And I'll tell you, I mean, we didn't think the Canadians would be in this spot because, of course, we thought the Maple Leafs were going to eliminate them, that this was maybe going to be the Maple Leafs' year. And I don't think the people in Toronto were too happy watching the NHL playoffs, especially seeing, another Canadian team, one of their traditional rivals, the Montreal Canadiens, enjoying such success. But I will say this going forward, Canadians are going to have to be a little more adept at scoring. I mean, you can only win these 1-0, 2-1 games for so long, but they remind me of a soccer team on ice. You see a soccer team go up 1-0, and now all they're doing is clearing the ball all game. And that's what you get the feeling with the Canadians. They get a lead, and all they do is clear the puck, clear the puck, clear the puck.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Dave. I'm glad you joined us this morning. So let's get to the MLB, and I think there's some surprise teams. I think the Rays are better than what people expected, right, Jack? They expected them kind of take a step back this year and the Blue Jays to move up, and that hasn't happened. The Rays are better than I thought they would be. The Red Sox handed the Yankees their second straight loss. I mean, to me, the AL East is right now, Jack. I mean, I think might come down at the end between those two teams. So, I mean, I know it's early. I know anybody could get a winning streak or go through a losing streak, but we're getting closer to the third of the way through, or third of the way through the season right now. And I think they're very surprising, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rays win the division this year, Jack.
I'll tell you, with the Red Sox, Bogarts and Diva, their left side of the infield is just about as good as anyone's, not as good as San Diego, with Machado and Tatis, but nevertheless, one of the best in baseball. And we've got to take the Red Sox seriously now. But I'm going to tell you, the AL East is going to be a mishmash. It's going to go back and forth. The Rays in first, they had that long winning streak that kind of propelled them. Yeah. And I think you're going to see teams, jumping back and forth with one another. And then we're going to see what acquisitions are going to be made in season, because there's a lot of speculation that the Washington Nationals could trade Max Scherzer because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. And then there's speculation the Nationals might re-sign him as a free agent, which is their right to do. Look, the Yankees did it with Chapman, didn't they? Right. But if Max Scherzer goes to one of the teams like the Boston Red Sox, wow. Right. Chris Sales comes back, to his old form from injury. I mean, those are two aces.
Yeah.
I mean, those are two aces. But if Scherzer should go to the Yankees and it's Cole and Scherzer, I mean, it's going to have like a major impact if he goes to Toronto. So let's see what players are going to get moved as well, because I think that's going to have a bearing on things. But also, some of the teams are reluctant to give up their really good prospects for a rental. But if you have a chance to win it all, like the Cubs did a few years ago, and they gave up Gleyber Torres for Chapman, knowing they'd only have Chapman half the season, but It resulted in the Cubs winning the World Series, it was certainly worth it.
Yeah, 100% right. We do have still have a trade deadline and everything coming up. So, I mean, there is going to be some movement. We're going to just see who does what. And I agree with you that the people that are in position to maybe go to the World Series might make some bigger moves, and the other ones might stay pat. One more thing I want to talk about before we bring Robert up is two other teams. The Twins, what the hell happened to them, Jack? I mean, this is a team that goes to playoffs almost every year. And what are they, 12 games back or something already? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You don't know. They haven't shown any resiliency. Kansas City Royals, for example, went first place early in the year. Then they started slipping, and now they've stabilized. I think they're game over 500. Twins just haven't gotten on track. I don't know what on earth is going on over there, but they haven't been very good. But we've been down this road before, Major League Baseball, Max. Some teams are dreadful for a couple of months, and then they finally wake up and they play to their potential. But with the Twins, I mean, when you dig yourself a hole like this, but the division that they're in, is it a winnable division? I mean, yeah, you have the White Sox in there. You have the Indians in there. It's, listen, the Detroit Tigers are 10 games under 500 now. they have all these young prospects. I thought the Tigers actually might be a little better because all these teams with the young prospects, you're waiting for them to kind of put it together at some point. Listen, you mentioned about a shortened season in basketball. You even go to the NL East, the Miami Marlins. Marlins in last place in the NL East. They haven't been playing very well. If any team benefited by a short season, it was probably the Marlins last year. They had a 31-29 record in the 60-game season and then won a playoff series against the Cubs. But over a full season, this is the test to see whether the Marlins' young players have truly developed and are truly taking the next step. It was last year a little bit of an aberration, as nice as an accomplishment as it was of making the playoffs.
I agree, and we'll bring Robert up for this too. This ain't one of the topics I gave for him, but Robert Butler hosts a Sports Scope on every media platform you can think of. Does a great job over there. Get a chance. Look it up on Facebook. Join Robert as he gives his commentary on all the biggest topics in sports. And I'll ask Robert this too. How you doing today, Robert?
Hey, morning, guys.
Are the San Francisco Giants for real? I mean, they looked like they were going to fall a little bit, and then they jumped up another couple of games. Their offense, pitching.
Well, they've always had a good farm system, pitching and everything. They're kind of like the Bay Area American League team over there in the Athletics. They always seem to have good pitching come out of nowhere. So you can never write off a team like that with a good farm system. That's shooting from the hip. The better news is that we're 15 weeks away from the kickoff of NFL Week 1. Just want to remind you guys.
Yes. Hey, Jack, what do you think? I mean, real quick on the Giants. I mean, we all said Dodgers and the Padres. That's them two teams are going to win the division and be the wild card. Well, nobody told San Francisco that, I guess.
I mean, the Giants have a small lead. The good thing with there being a wild card, the Giants shouldn't worry about the Dodgers and the Padres because they're not going to hold both of them off all year. Just win, get in as a wild card. You want to know something? At the end of the day, no one cares whether you won the division or not. It's virtually meaningless. I mean, listen, in 2004, when the Red Sox came back 3-0 against the Yankees, beat them, and then went on to win the World Series, broke the curse of the Bambino. The Yankees won the division. No one cares. I mean, the Yankees, imagine unfurling a banner at the start of the next season that they were AL East champs. I think in 2007, when the Red Sox won the World Series, I think the Yankees won the division that year too. No one cares at the end of the day. Just get into the playoffs and take it from there, unless it's a one-game series, and that's scary in the playoffs. You want to avoid a one-game series, but outside of that, winning the division, I hate to say is meaningless, even though we like to look at the standings. It's just get in the playoffs, and that's how you're going to be judged.
Okay, so there you go. We're going to talk about Jim Jeffcoat about this too when he comes on after you, Robert, because he was actually coaching at XFL. Now the XFL, Jack said it was boring, but they were getting a lot of followers last year before COVID hit. I mean, the COVID ended up forcing them to close down the season. They had a kickoff rule I thought was awesome that the NFL, it prevents the injuries. The team can't start running until after the ball is kicked, and it doesn't give them an unfair advantage of running down the field, and they can field it and they can start blocking. I mean, the rule was great. I think the NFL should have adopted it. And people were actually, while I was looking at the sports groups, were following these teams. COVID comes along, crashes them. They're ready to go again this year, Robert, under the rock, as running the league. Then the USFL announces, guess what? Next year we're going to be back. And they're owned by Fox Sports. And I should say that Fox Sports has the rights to them. So they're going to produce that like they produce the NFL. So is the USFL going to destroy the XFL?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing about these spring leagues, guys, it's very hard to follow them because they seem to have a different rotating TV schedule. And money always seems to be an issue with these spring leagues. So you really can't have that many. There was a spring game on yesterday, and on ESPN, I had no idea we even had a spring league this year. So it's very difficult to follow. Money's an issue. I do think it'll work. The numbers say it will work. You just have to have someone with a huge bank account, a Jeff Bezos type of capital funding for it. And you need about 5 years of just solid patience and commitment from TV networks. It's got to be like the NFL. The second week of September, we know where our appointment's going to be. It's going to be 1 o'clock Eastern time, and you're going to have so many games on like clockwork. And that's the problem with and obviously it's money and resources. I get it. But it will work. It just needs a proper funding, I think.
Well, the old USFL, as Jack mentioned, before it ran out of money, was a very viable league. I mean, they had Hall of Famers playing there, Steve Young, and Lyman Herschel Walker was there when he was in his prime. I mean, they had a legitimate shot. I think they just overpaid the players where they ran out of money and they didn't have, enough revenue coming in to pay these guys. But with Fox Sports, one of the biggest sports broadcasting companies in the world behind them, sort of like the NBA is behind the WNBA. I mean, it has a legitimate chance to take root. I don't know how it's not going to be popular as NFL, of course not. But people love football, and if they can get some solid players there, who knows?
But mind you, I mean, if USFL would have stayed in the spring in '83 instead of competing head-to-head with the NFL in the spring, I think that it would have been successful back in '83. That was a bad move from the owner. I have to disagree.
Well, no. What had actually happened, and this isn't political at all, mentioning the name Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who owned the New Jersey Generals, who was an influential voice amongst the owners of the USFL, he got tired of, the USFL just being as is. He wanted to join the NFL. He wanted an NFL franchise. So he convinced the other owners to, take on the NFL, take them to court where the NFL would then have to absorb some of the USFL teams into their league. I mean, and the USFL actually won a court order. Donald Trump won in court. He was given like $3, but that's kind of common with the damages. He won, but he didn't. Really, when John Bassett, who owned the Tampa Bay Bandits at the time, he despised Donald Trump, and he kind of basically was the one voice that took Donald Trump on. He didn't want to do it. He didn't think it was a good idea. But you're right, Mac. But it had the USFL continued. Financing was becoming a little difficult, not so much because of the league. It was because of spring/summer football wasn't going. There was a certain fatigue of it going year round. I mean, it's hard to explain because all of us gear up for the NFL season. We get psyched. We kind of build up to it. We look forward to it. And to transition to another league, after they were going in their third year, I think it was, fatigue was setting in. It wasn't quite as interesting. And the way to keep it interesting, obviously, is with high-profile players, with great players. And the bidding war, the USFL got some great players in the bidding war from the NFL, but, couldn't quite sustain it.
Yeah, it's a financial thing, maybe you can push it back a few weeks so people can kind of get over the hangover of the NFL and maybe start it as a pre-summer league. I keep telling everybody on my show that all leagues, particularly Major League Baseball and NBA, but the month of July, there's nothing going on. It's 1,000 degrees outside. Reruns are on TV. Netflix had one of their biggest viewings of Stranger Things on the 4th of July because there's nothing else going on. You need a good football league there. That would help, I think the Arena League was in the month of July at one point, and they were doing quite well, but,
I think you need,
behind the scenes.
I think you need a bidding war. Let's say the USFL was allowed to take on the NFL, and they drafted Trevor Lawrence, and they outbid the NFL, and Trevor Lawrence joined the USFL team. Guess what? All of us are going to be watching the USFL to see how Trevor Lawrence does. Okay. Yeah. And then, you signed some three guys who played out their contracts in the NFL, some big name players like a Derrick Henry. The USFL signs him. Now people are watching. You're interested because now they're saying, wow, the USFL could actually maybe compete with the NFL. And I'll tell you, we had Bart Oates on, Mac, as a guest here. Bart Oates, when he joined the Giants later on, he was with the Philadelphia Stars of the USFL. Before that, he was quoted as saying, I believe, that the USFL team, the Philadelphia Star team that he was on, could have competed with some of the weaker NFL teams, was maybe even better than them. So that's what we want to know. We want quality at the end of the day. We want true quality, football, thinking that the USFL actually could compete with the NFL. That's what would make it popular.
Yeah, it's been discussed, guys. Go ahead. I'm just saying it's been discussed with the XFL getting players second year out of college versus the third for the NFL and undercutting the NFL. That was discussed when the XFL was getting relaunched. So I was just saying that's food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could work, but the only thing that could happen here, and I think Jack brought this up one time too, is that this becomes a feeder system, and then I wouldn't be interested in it at all. So in other words, I don't want to see freshman college kids going to the XFL or USFL and like feeding into the NFL. I mean, we already got that with college football, and that would just throw everything, I think, in an uproar up in the air, and I wouldn't know what to watch anymore. So we'll see what happens. I kind of feel sorry for the XFL. I know how hard it is to start something and to try to do something, and not only does COVID beat you, but then USFL says we're going to start. So that was pretty interesting to me. And they were even discussing a partnership with the CFL, which I don't think will happen now. So we'll see what happens. Who do you think, Robert? There's a lot of great coaches, and I should say a lot. There's a few really, really great coaches. I mean, Bill Belichick, probably the best in modern history. You got Tomlinson over in the Steelers. They're always competitive. You got Andy Reid making a name for himself over there. Tampa Bay, I don't think they give the head coach enough credit. They think Brady is the coach of the team too, and maybe partly he is. And of course the guy down in New Orleans, and we got some young coaches.
Sean Payton,
yeah. So I mean, if you had to start a team right now, and thinking of everything, youth, experience, expertise, who would you take right now as the best coach in the NFL?
Well, I'll tell you this. This is an interesting fact about Belichick. With all their the opt-outs, all the free agency losses, did you guys know that the Patriots last year with Cam Newton, a player that came in late, no preseason, limited offseason, everything, they were the least penalized team in NFL last year. Can you guys believe that? I mean, I checked two sources on that to make sure. So somebody like him, I'd probably still take Belichick as long as he's the coach and not the general manager and the coach. Yeah. That's supposedly going to be changed this year. This past draft, he didn't tell all his scouts and assistant scouting directors and all that, hey, step aside, I'm going to pick the players. Supposedly, all reports are that actually he went with their suggestions rather than his suggestions. But we'll see. Mac Jones is played for a good friend of his and Nick Saban, but everybody else in it, because Robert Kraft is criticized. Hey, look, we're not drafting well, and Tom Brady covered up all those sores and warts because he was such a good quarterback. But now this stuff comes to play when you don't have a guy like Brady at quarterback. But coaching, I mean, this got least penalized team with all that turnover. I mean, that's unbelievable, guys.
Yeah, listen, I can't argue with that pick at all. And remember, the year before Brady left, the Patriots, even though they went 10-6, were falling fast. And I think Brady saw that coming. And I know I believe Belichick saw it coming too. But I agree with you as far as running a team goes on the field. Without all those players, they still finished 7-9 with a first-year quarterback that didn't have not a first year for the Patriot quarterback Cam Newton, who didn't have no spring training. I mean,
Max,
listen,
7-9 is not good for a team.
oh,
like
it is
New
for a
England.
lot of.
I wouldn't say, well, they didn't do
Jack,
too bad. They did
Jack,
poorly.
Jack, please, Jack.
They
Please,
were
7-9.
2-0, and then they were 5-9 after that.
I understand it has a lot to do with his schedule, Jack. Listen, if you have lost your whole defense, including one of the best linebackers in the league, one of the best cornerbacks in the league,
yeah,
and then you talk about the offensive line injuries. You talk about Cam Newton, who didn't have any spring. You think 7-9 was bad? I think you're completely wrong. I think for them to go 7-9 was very good.
guys. Go ahead, Jack.
I agree with you guys about Belichick. No complaints. If I had to pick one coach, I would pick Bill Belichick there. You look for consistency year in, year out, how a coach's team has done. It doesn't have to translate into Super Bowl victories, even though Belichick has his share. You take a look at someone like Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are always relevant. They're always up there, at the very least contending for a playoff position. Even when he loses Ben Roethlisberger, he has success. You look at Andy Reid, his teams are usually good. I like Brian Flores, the young coach of the Dolphins. I think he's going to establish himself as an outstanding coach. Sean Payton runs a great program, as you guys mentioned, with New Orleans. That's what I look for, consistency. Is the team the guy coaches consistently good? It doesn't have to translate into championships. It doesn't necessarily have to translate into playoff appearances, but are they bad? They hit patches where they're really bad, truly bad. And for a few coaches, they never hit those patches, and it's because of them in large part.
Yeah, Cam Newton, I want to add, he caught COVID, and that was a weeks with an S. That set him back for weeks. Some people with COVID, Kirk Herbstreit still he don't even have his taste buds back. Cam Newton said that really hit me much harder than I could ever have imagined. And you could see some of the blowouts, the 49er game, you could really see that it took him a while to get over that. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I mean, who else did they have last year, guys, at quarterback?
To kind of counter Jack's point, I mean, there was a guy in Dallas who was consistently winning and got nothing but, booed and ended up losing his job, and that was Jason Garrett, right? The Cowboys were always there, and they were consistently near the playoffs, and yet he's not looked at as a good head coach, Jack.
Well, the problem is that the expectations of being a Dallas Cowboy coach are a little higher than most other franchises. But the Cowboys' problem was that Joneses didn't want to fire Jason Garrett, but the public pressure became so great because that last year the Cowboys collapsed. They went from like an 85% probability of making the playoffs to week after week they were losing. Percentages sank, and ultimately they didn't make the playoffs. Had they staggered into the playoffs, that last year, chances are he would still be the coach. The Jones family liked him. They didn't want to let him go. But sometimes, guys, fatigue sets in. You just get tired of hearing the media get on you. And you just, you're waiting for a little spark to give you a reason to keep a guy. And Jason Garrett at the end didn't quite give him that reason. But he's the offensive coordinator of the Giants. And I'm going to tell you, if Daniel Jones has a really good year and the Giants improve substantially, Jason Garrett's going to become a very viable head coaching candidate next year. I think he interviewed, if I'm not mistaken, for the LA Charger job this year. That eventually went to Deuce Staley. But so Jason Garrett, my feeling is he's going to be a head coach in the NFL again.
Well, we'll see. But I would agree with Robert. Definitely Belichick. It would be my choice too. And Tomlin wouldn't be too far behind him, if not my second. So let's talk a little bit about the NBA.
Okay.
I'm looking at teams that are doing load management, right? We're not going to play our players, even though fans are paying big dollars to go see these games. And all of a sudden, well, LeBron's not playing today, or Embiid, not because of injury, but they're going to rest him, and Kyrie's going away for 2 weeks. I mean, to me, what's happening right now, Robert, is that a lot of teams are not taking the regular season seriously because they know they're good enough to get in the playoffs. So wouldn't it be the best idea for the NBA to make the season legit again, to cut down the amount of teams from 8 to 4 to get in the playoffs?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Possibly. There needs to be a sense of urgency in the NBA. I've always thought that Adam Silver and the owners and the NBA PA should spread the games out more, put more competitive games in the month of July, eliminate these back-to-backs. And if you want to do load management, there's going to be a penalty for that if there's not a legit injury. And I think they need to lay the hammer down on that. It's very expensive, guys, to go to these games. There needs to be a sense of urgency. The players need to take this stuff more seriously. And maybe because the players are being lagging time and taking too many games, that may be a reason for all these injuries. It could very well be. But personally, I would like the NBA to go 1-16, no matter East, West, no matter division, in the playoffs. I know that we've had parity this year, guys, but prior to this year, I mean, it's been the West and everybody else, other than those few years with Miami. I don't want to hear this. What about the travel and everything? Memphis, I was a big Memphis fan. Memphis had to play the Clippers when they had Chris Paul in a 7-game series. Nobody died. Nobody got injured. Everything was fine. But 1-16, I think that would be awesome because you would build up towards the final. You'd actually get the two best teams in there.
But that wouldn't solve the problem if you're the Lakers. They know they're going to finish in the top 16. So what I'm saying is that, to me, right now, the problem with the NBA, the biggest problem with the NBA, is not the social thing. It's not the teams getting players from other teams. It's that the regular season doesn't really mean much if you know you got a good team. I'm not worried about the Washington Wizards. I don't care. They're not going to do this. I know if I'm the Lakers without LeBron James, without Anthony Davis, I'm going to be in the top 8. Well, if you only have 4 teams, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to play those games, and you're going to have to play almost all those games to make sure you hit the top 4.
I have an idea, guys.
An issue, guys.
I have an idea. I never thought of this before, but this could be a lot of fun. You mentioned 16 teams. How about this? The team with the best record automatically goes to the finals. Automatically, and all the other teams have a playoff series to meet that team. Could you imagine the dogfight for the top position in the NBA for the best record? How hard they're going to be playing, putting their best players out. You know what bothers me? What this does to the way the NBA is today, what it does to the fans, the resting of players. It's certain fans only go to 1 or 2 games a year.
I know.
A few games a year. Now, if you're going specifically to see the road team play, and you're getting tickets to see an elite player play, and he's not playing that game, you kind of feel a little cheated. Let's say you want to see the Lakers play, you want to see LeBron James, he's not playing. Let's say you want to see Joel Embiid play, he's not playing. I mean, things like that, you kind of feel a little cheated as a fan. In a certain sense, you wish they would rest the players at home because the home team fans have always more of a chance, to see their own guys play. But that would be that's upsetting to me as a fan if I want to see a great player play and I'm looking forward to that and they're resting them that game.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like the play-in scenario. This year, those play-in games were exciting to watch. That Golden State Lakers game was good. The 2 Memphis games I thought was interesting. But ideally, financially, guys, if we could talk in the owners and the TV networks to lower that number, I think it would be overall good for the game. But it's always going to come down to money, guys.
Well, I mean, I understand that, and I understand that they want, a lot of their fans to, the fans will keep interest. But to me, if you can't be in the top 4 of your league, you shouldn't be in the NBA playoffs.
Right.
I mean, it's got to mean something. Last for you, Robert. Coach K retired. Retiring this year. Great legendary coach. I think this one-stop freshman go to the NBA killed him last year when he went along with it. But he's been there forever. And if you think of college basketball, Duke is probably the top 1, 2, 3 teams that comes to your mind. Legendary teams, legendary players in college anyway, and a legendary coach. Do you think he should have took a shot at the NBA? And do you think he could have coached in the NBA? Well,
I'll tell you this. Here's some interesting facts for you. For one thing, I made the argument last year that Steve Ballmer should have offered him $20 million to take over the Clippers job. That's food for thought. Another thing is, in 2008, when he was coaching LeBron James in the Olympics, he told LeBron, he said, listen, look me in the eye when you're talking to me. And you think LeBron would be really offended by that? He said, we just need this for more effective communication. Well, just a few years ago, LeBron says, you know what? I may send LeBron Jr. to play for Duke and Coach K. Here's another example. Kobe Bryant. I mean, God rest his soul, guys. But you didn't have to read, which I did, Phil Jackson's book to realize that Kobe Bryant was very tough to coach. And numerous times, Kobe had been asked, if you were forced to go to college, who would you play for? And he consistently said, Coach K at Duke. He's got 3 gold medals. He's 74. He looks 54, guys. I think that Coach K, maybe take a year or 2 off. Even at 76, in the right situation, I think he could win a championship in the NBA.
Coach K wants to enjoy life. Good for him. Coaching takes a lot of time. It's a grind. I think it's great he spent his whole career basically at Duke, over 40 years there. Why move around to the NBA? We talk like the NBA is a promotion, like, Duke's a lower level. Listen, when we think of college basketball, we think of Duke. We think of Coach K. That's a great legacy. And who says he would have had success in the NBA? I mean, we don't know. So many college coaches go to the NBA. Now you're dealing with men instead of kids. At the time he dealt with LeBron, LeBron was a kid at the time. Let's say he hadn't met LeBron and he was dealing with LeBron James later on in life. That may have been a really tough fit because LeBron doesn't exactly get along with coaches. That's his history, unfortunately, for the most part. And, Coach K did it the right way. He did it a great way. He was rewarded financially. His legacy was rewarded. The guy wants to enjoy life. Like he said, he's not leaving because the game has passed him by, because he's pressured, because he's tired of basketball. He still loves it. He wants to see his grandchildren play games. Just enjoy life, Is he going to miss it to the point where he might want to come back? He might want to come back. But listen, how many 76-year-old coaches do we have? But then again, Joe Biden took over the presidency at age 77. So I guess, that would be in play.
And Jim Boeheim's older than he is, and look, Buck Flair said he did right. He came from Bobby Knight. Now, Bobby Knight, I think one of the coaches, one of the players would put Bobby Knight into a coma, I think. But now Coach K, he coaches hard, but he's fair and respectful. And I think the NBA could use more Coach K's. He could be like a father figure to the players. He's got that kind of respect, guys.
Yeah, Coach Kyrie Irving, didn't he, at Duke?
But Jack does make a point. It's hard to coach people that make more money than you and wield a little bit more power than you. I mean, I'm getting a brain freeze at San Antonio Spurs coach. He does a good job with it. Yeah, he does a real good job with players. But it seems like he brings them up, through the ranks. He doesn't have too many free agents. If you notice, go to San Antonio, right? They normally start with San Antonio, and he kind of, he teaches them there. But I don't know how LeBron. I would imagine LeBron would listen to him. I don't know. It's different when you have a
It
veteran.
depends on the personalities. Keep in mind, Coach K, he had David Robinson and Tim Duncan, two very high character guys who listened to authority. Okay. And then he had K.Y. Leonard, who I'm not saying is a bad guy who wouldn't listen to authority. I'm not saying that, but he had problems with K.Y. Leonard. Keep that in mind. He was a San Antonio Spur, and they just didn't quite get on the same page long term. So, it depends the players' personalities. That has a lot to do with it.
Very true. So, Robert, thank you for coming in again. We all enjoy having you on, us, the viewers, and we'll see you again next week. Again, everybody, go in and Facebook search Robert Butler. He's all over the place. And get all his
with a K.
There you go, Sports Scope with a K. So check him out. He does a great job. He's on late at night too. So a lot of you people that are up late at night, if you want to see him live, he's out there for you. So Robert, again, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you again next week, my friend.
Have a good show, guys. See ya.
Take care, Rob.
All right.
So there you go, Jack. Robert Butler coming up right after the breaks. We should have on the Connecticut Falcons head coach and one of their star defensive players, kind of wrapping up the season with them, even though they may have some playoff games to play. And, of course, our guest co-host for the last hour, the two-time Super Bowl champion, defensive end legend for the Dallas Cowboys, will be joining us also. So, folks, stick around. Got a lot more sports coming, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you.
For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Today is our This Week in Sports edition, our Sunday show, where me and Jack have a variety of guests on, and who normally joins us or who has been joining us, working his way up to a full-time co-host with us here on the show, starting when the NFL kicks off, and we have our NFL Big Show, and I can't wait for that to start. We'll bring him up, and we also got the coach of the Connecticut Falcons down under, too, and we'll bring him up in a minute. But let's bring up one of the best defensive ends in football history, and I'm not saying that to be nice to the man. He's got the stats to prove it, and here he comes up right now, Jim Jeffcoat, former Dallas Cowboy great. And how are we doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great. How about you guys? How are you doing?
Hey, Jim.
We're doing awesome. I wanted to get you on, and first we're going to visit with the Connecticut Falcons, and we're going to get to the XFL/USFL, and then break down the Eagles. We'll try to get it all in 1 hour, but Jack has a way of rumbling on, so I got to keep him in check. So
Jack is all right.
We'll give him a
I got a lot to say, but I'm going to tone it down this show.
Bring it out.
Yes. I know, Jim. I'm just giving him a hard time, as I always do. So, Jim, I'm going to introduce you to the Connecticut Falcons head coach, semi-pro league. We've been following this team, and the semi-pro league is to me almost a great childhood memory, because I followed the Hartford Knights way back when I was a kid, before the NCAA got huge. And They had Mark Hubbard, they had Coy Bacon, they had Bob Tucker, all pros in the NFL. So this league was a big league, especially up here. I know they're across the country. So I want to bring up, we started following the Falcons, and the head coach of that is Matt Tomcheski, and we're going to bring him up right now. How you doing today, Matt?
I had better mornings, but I'm doing all right. How are you doing today?
Doing good. And Matt is Coach Tomcheski, let me give him the proper due, is saying that because they had a rough one. They got beat their last home game. And was that against the Cougars? Am I saying it right, Coach?
No, the Wolfpack.
The Wolfpack. I knew it was one of those mean animals that you guys went up against. So you had a tough game. It was your last home game. You still got playoffs looking forward to, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Next week playoffs, and right now the probability is very high. We see the Wolfpack again.
Beautiful. So tell us a little bit about the game. I know it was a tough game. It was a close game. What ended up happening last game, Coach?
Well, to start off, it was 93 degrees. daytime kickoff. We had a lot of guys worn out. Guys were playing both sides of the ball. We had a 60-yard touchdown called back on a pretty, in my mind, bad call. The guy made a clean block. They called it a blindside block. They were looking at each other for a good 10 yards before he even touched them. What are you going to do? And then at the end they put in a final score to just kind of hold it off. But I mean, the guys played a tough game, and it's just tough to lose a game, 18-6 when you're better than that, and we performed better than that. We just couldn't pull it off this week. It was disappointing.
Right, and Jim, these guys they're a nonprofit, and they work jobs, plus they play football. We've had some players on that. I've watched the highlights. I've played some highlights of them. And Jim was a coach too in the XFL, and of course his years being a pro football player with the Cowboys, a very successful one. These kids, Jim, they want to keep the dream alive. A lot of them are college kids that don't have good college. Yeah, they don't have good college football programs, or they don't have any. So they turn to semi-pro to get some tape on them to hopefully, go to college or go to arena football, CFL, maybe get a tryout with the NFL. So, I love the kids, and we got one coming on. I know he'll probably be excited to meet you. His nickname is Chucky. All right, so I guess that's after the mean doll. He's a linebacker. He's a linebacker for the Connecticut Falcons. And as soon as he gets himself straight there on video, I got him underneath. I'll bring him up too, so we can kind of have a round table. So Chucky, you got the light on you. You can hear me. I can't hear you yet. You ready to come up aboard, my friend? Just shake your head. Yes. Yes. All right. Here he comes. So, how you doing today? They call you Chucky. Is that after the mean doll, or is that just a friendly name? What's going on? Oh, you got a tattoo too, huh? All right. So, I think I saw you get thrown out of a game too, Chucky, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I know you did.
Of course.
So, Chucky, that's Jim Jeffcoat up at the top, Dallas Cowboy defensive end, two-time Super Bowl champion.
Oh, so he knows. You should know.
Yes, yes.
Doing? Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm sorry. Me and my daughter literally just woke up.
Yeah, all right. So there she is. So Chucky, tell us a little bit about why you're playing semi-pro for the Connecticut Falcons. Is it a college thing? Is it because you want tape for arena? Do you want to keep going, or you just love playing football?
I've been playing football for 22 years, since I was 8 years old. I'm 31. And I've never played high school. Never did any college. But I've always played inner city football. And if it wasn't for football, I don't know where I'd be, honestly. So I play to stay alive, I play for the love of the game. And I play to escape, That's how I deal with life by playing football,
So it's a lot to do with the team aspect. You're all brothers out there on the field, playing for each other. True basic football. Have you ever had any, or do you still have any thoughts of maybe playing arena football, or maybe going on to maybe the CFL, or even getting a tryout with the NFL?
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I would love to. My thing is I want to compete at the highest level, and I want to win at the highest level. So, but I've went up against NFL caliber DNs and NFL caliber players. So I'm like, if I could compete with them,
So Jim, what kind of advice would you have for someone who wants to? Go ahead.
Obviously, you put yourself in a video and give it a package. And then there's always CFL tryouts 2 or 3 times a year, arena football, obviously. And then later on, we'll talk about it. But there's going to be opportunities in the USFL and the XFL. You're going to have 2 spring leagues plus the spring league that's playing right now. So there's going to be opportunities to continue playing. You just have to be prepared and understand that the challenges that you face, and prepare yourself for those challenges to be successful, because you got to have that wow factor. Especially, you have to have the wow factor. You have to go in there, and everything you do at a high level. Those things are the things that'll get you in the door, because it only takes one coach to fall in love with you. It takes one coach to fall in love with you to give you an opportunity.
Excellent advice. Chucky, what happened in the last game? The defense, for the most part that I've been following all year, has played really well. It's kept the offense in a lot of games through third string quarterbacks and players not making it because of travel. You guys travel normally separate in cars or together, carpooling. The defense has played really well this year, and you played well again, well enough to win the last game. So what are you looking forward to? I mean, playing the playoffs, what do you think the team has to do? I'm not asking you to give coach advice, but what do you think on the defensive side of the ball? Is there any more improvements that you think you guys can make to maybe get yourselves in that win mode, into winning some of these playoff games?
The playoffs, as any football player knows, is a whole different. It's a whole different beast. You know, it's not the regular season. Playoffs is win or go home. You know, and I feel like you just got to leave it all out on the field. Every play, you go 150%. You communicate. You know, communication is huge. Understanding is also huge. You know what I mean? And everybody doing their job full speed. You know, and just play to the whistle. Stay together. There's, you know, no fighting. And just no matter what, to the last whistle.
And don't get thrown out of the game either, Chucky, please. Coach,
don't get thrown out of the game.
Coach, so do you already have the team you're playing first in the playoffs? Has the bracket been set?
There's games today that solidify it, but the high probability, I mean, in the 90% is that we play the Wolfpack again in Long Island.
Okay, so tomorrow you guys got an appearance from what I understand over there in Meriden. Some of the players out there putting a little shine on you guys, get a little more public support in your area, and good luck to you, Coach. Is there anything that you'd like to add? I mean, this was the last home game that you guys played. Anything you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to highlight some of the guys that really have shown out real well this season. Obviously Ryan, our quarterback, he's, you know, the offense is run through him, and it's really shown. You know, when he's on, we're on. Taz, David, great season at running back. I think he's averaging 4 or 5 yards a carry. I mean, I think 3 or 4 touchdowns. Like, I mean, he's doing good. Bromel, the executioner. I mean, he can't be covered one-on-one. I mean, there's teams that come up on him and they're triple covering him. I mean, 6'6", 20 years old. I mean, he's down the field threat. They can't stop him. And then the guy who really flies under the radar on the offensive side, I'd really like to shine the light on Eric Dudley. This boy is normally a slot receiver. We moved him out to outside this year. He's a little small for the outside, but nobody can cover this man. I mean, he's been open all season. We just need to get him the ball more. Come the playoffs, we just need to get our weapons the ball and get some more points on the board. We've been a little stagnant lately, and I just want these guys to want to shine the light on those guys. And then, of course, the big hogs up on the line. Each week they've been improving and getting better. And a big shout out to all the guys on the defense that, you know, keep us in these ball games. I mean, defense as a whole is keep us in the ball games. And then, you know, even guys like Chucky, when we need some help on the O-line and we're low on numbers, comes over and helps on the O-line. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, these guys are fighting and, you know, they love football. And just want to let them know we're all 0-0 this week, and we go in and we're going to work.
Excellent. Coach, thanks for coming on every week with us. Next year, I'll get you on for the playoffs too. But next year, we're going to go a little bit harder with you guys, a little bit more coverage. Hopefully, we'll get some live games up with you guys. Chuck, take care of business during the playoffs. You understand me? Don't make me come over there, all right? All right, guys. Good luck to you guys. And thanks for coming on again.
Good luck,
Coach,
guys.
and Chuck, nice meeting you. Go get them, all right, my friend?
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You all have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
So there you go, folks. Really, our last big hurrah with them. I'll keep you guys all updated. What's going on with the Connecticut?
I just want to say something. A lot of the pro athletes, NFL players, are going to get criticized because they're making good money. They're considered selfish, this or that. But Jim could back this up, I'm sure. Let's say no one could get paid. There was no money anymore. I think a lot of guys in the NFL, most of them would play just for love of game. They would find a Sunday afternoon league they would form to play amongst themselves just for the love of the game. And most fans don't realize that.
Don't tell the owners.
But, no question. You would play for free because the love of the game. and the opportunity to compete.
Yes, I mean I love and I coached at the lower levels for years, Jim, and it was a lot. It was all I got paid at high school a little something, but nowhere as amount of time as I put into it. I had almost 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job because you're always thinking about what you'd be doing and how to get better. So Jim, with the XFL, which you coached for over in Dallas, they kind of got slammed with the COVID. There was interest building. People were following the games, and COVID kind of cut you guys off. And now this year with the USFL announcing that they're coming back, and of course Fox Sports is going to be covering them like they cover the NFL. They have the rights. How is this going to affect the XFL?
I think it's going to affect them because the way that I understand it, I don't have all the inside information, but I think the XFL is looking for a TV contract. And this eliminates Fox Sports, obviously, because of the USFL. And they got to find a TV. They got to find an outlet. And I tell you what, it might be something like an Amazon. It could be it could be somewhere else in that thing, ESPN. But that is what my understanding of it is. They're looking for a TV contract to fund it because this is not like Vince McMahon, who can fund it his own self. They need funding to make it successful. The USFL has that. Now, the thing that's going to affect both leagues is talent. Can they get enough talent? And there is talent out there. There's not enough places, just like you see with Chucky and semi-pro. There's not enough places for these kids to play. And this gives them other avenues to possibly play at the highest level, the NFL.
To me, the opportunity has passed the XFL by. I hate to say it. There was this commercial that you never get another chance to make a first impression. And when Vince McMahon started the XFL, he had the chance to really do something big because, as you recall, the first game had high ratings. He needed to do something along the lines of the WWE. Purists like Mac hate it. They want to stick strictly with football, but you have to make it entertaining. Jim, you could appreciate it being a former wrestler yourself, the little bit of pizzazz in the player. But Vince McMahon tried to make it smash mouth football. That's what he built it around. Smash mouth football might be beautiful if you love old-time football, but it is boring in this day and age. Young people like the long ball. They like the passing. They like the showmanship. They would like to wrestle a barging in at halftime, like we were joking in the past show, like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the players in the league would know they have to do this for the good of the league because it's going to keep the ratings up and it's going to mean more money for them. It's as much as distasteful as some players and coaches would find it, they'd know it would be part of the survival for the league. Instead, the XFL was a short passing league. I watched the games, and I'm going to be honest, I was bored.
Go ahead.
You got to realize I have to disagree with you. First of all, you look at the rates of people. Football is a fan game. People love to come to the games, first of all. And if I've been in Seattle, where they were at the Seahawks place, and that thing was sold out. You look at what happened in St. Louis, and you can't say that these places were sold out. Dallas, Houston, I mean, they had a good product. It wasn't the product. It was unfortunately COVID because they could have built on there. It wasn't any gimmicks. It was football. And you say, well, it was high scoring. It was a combination of the NFL and college because you see some of these players that are playing in the NFL that were in this league. So it had to have some success from the player standpoint, but from the fan standpoint, it was a great opportunity to see football in the spring.
And you know, Jeff,
yeah. And I'm getting too tall on you for saying that, Jack.
Yeah. Jim,
Paul never would have played in the XFL. point is, they were not competing the XFL. The USFL competed with the NFL. The AFL competed with the NFL. The XFL was not competing with the Too Tall never would have signed with an XFL team. He may have signed with a USFL team or an AFL team.
That wasn't the purpose. They didn't want to compete at this time with the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Their focus was developing a spring league. And like I said, if it wasn't COVID, this thing would still be going on. It would have been
agree.
But you would think of the USFL, if they try to compete with the NFL, this time they're going to lose. The NFL is old. It's an old established organization. And I mean, you can't compete with something like that unless you better have some big pockets. You better have some deep pockets. You better
well,
be ready
I'm gonna tell you, I like the concept of a spring league. You're not going to compete against the NFL in the winter time, and if you do, eventually there's going to have to be a merger. But the AFL signed Joe Namath. They went against the St. Louis Cardinals in the NFL, and the Jets signed Joe Namath. If a USFL team offered a major contract to Trevor Lawrence, for example, and he signed with the USFL team instead of going to the Jaguars, that puts him on the map, the new league. But I don't think the Fox network is going to allow that. It's going to be the lower level talent is going to be playing, for the USFL. And you mentioned cities like St. Louis. Well, they lost their NFL team, so they're going to turn out. If someone is starving, they're willing to eat hot dogs instead of steak.
But what about Seattle? What about Dallas? They have teams. What about Houston? They have teams.
Does Houston really have a team now?
Huh?
Does Houston has a team officially?
Yes.
Okay.
What about Tampa Bay? These all have teams. It's a spring league, and it's just spring.
See, if Jack don't like it, he thinks nobody likes it. I watched the fans on the groups come out, and they were following the XFL. They were following them.
It's a fan experience.
They were actually. I'll tell you the truth.
They were partying. The beaches were crowded. They needed to go somewhere nice weather.
I'm going to mute you in 1 second. I'm going to mute you. You keep cutting me off. Listen, Jim. I agree that the XFL, if it were not for COVID, would be stronger this year than it was the year prior. I agree with that 100%. They were actually giving scores. They were talking about it in all the groups, and they were getting very popular. And they had some rules in the XFL I thought were awesome, especially the kickoff rule. I thought the NFL should have adopted it. But that's beside the point. I don't think the NFL wants to take advice from anybody but themselves. But anyway, I think, Jim, to get back to the original point before we start talking about Trevor Lawrence going somewhere, I really believe this is going to hurt the XFL because Fox is behind them. If the XFL don't make that move, if the XFL don't get nobody to sponsor from, they may be all done, Jim.
I agree with you 100%. I'm not arguing that because this thing is, you got to look at business. You're going to have pockets enough to go through the adversity. Does the XFL, they brought it, for $15 million? They got a stock company not stock company, but really a holding company helping them. But they want money. They want to see a profit. And it's going to be hard to profit when you don't have the television rights and things like that. I tell you what the XFL did that was genius was they really work with, we all say that that's the taboo, but with Vegas, with the games. And how they set that up was genius. And I'm telling you, that's the thing, because now bettors going to bet on who's going to score first, and we all do that, but it said, no, it's not, but they did it better. They found a better way to get this done, the XFL.
I'm talking about the XFL, how entertaining the product was on the field. Now, I have tremendous respect for the players on the field. Nothing negative about any play at all. But we're living in a society now that likes glamour. They like the long pass. I mean, they like the end zone celebrations. I mean, players are practicing their end zone celebration now, as crazy as it is. Who could have the best one of all the teams? We're going to see that on the ESPYs, the best touchdown celebrations, which is great. I actually like that stuff. I mean, I'm an old timer who loves the modern stuff, but I rather see Michael Irvin go out for catch a 25, 30-yard pass and showboat a little at the end within limits, not taunting. I never back taunting, rather than see Emmitt Smith grind out 4 or 5-yard carries. I mean, that's just me. The XFL was giving you the short passing game.
Jack
I like the game to be opened up a lot more. I love the sack.
As you can tell, Jack never played football, Jim.
So
I played intramural.
Yeah, flag football don't count.
I played intramurals at my college.
Touch football don't count.
Yeah.
So Jack, I know you're a boxing aficionado. I know that. So you rather have a boxer that's showboating all the time than a boxer who can fight.
Thank you for setting. You set me up, Jim. You just set me up perfectly. Boxing fans want knockouts. They want knockouts. I mean, they don't want to. I mean, as masterful as someone can box, they don't want to see one fighter shut down another in a boring manner for the whole fight and win. I mean, you have some great fight. You have a guy like Demetrius Andrade, one of the WBO middleweight champion, a great fighter, unbeaten. But he's got to become a little more exciting. He was told that. So he's trying to change his style, become more of a puncher. We had a guy, Michael Nunn, years ago, and they said about him that condemned prisoners should be forced to watch him fight as part of their punishment. He was a great fighter, but he was just boring in the ring. You want to see a certain excitement in there. And the XFL has just got to adapt, more of a passing game. The USFL, look, they had Steve Young and Jim Kelly amongst others. I mean, it was
you can't win
great.
Can't win it. You're outnumbered. So you said Floyd Mayweather wasn't really exciting because he's more of a boxer.
He could market himself outside the ring. That's what Floyd can do. He could market himself. But listen, social media loves Tyson, for example.
Jack, we're going down boxing now. I don't want to go boxing. I know Jim started. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. This is the main reason. We got a break coming up, so I'll set you guys up, and back on the other side of break, we'll start it. Okay. So, as we know, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl not too long ago, if we all remember correctly. And now, since they had, I guess, that off-season, Carson Wentz not playing well, people heard, they fire their head coach, they hire a new one, their Super Bowl quarterback gets let go of, and the potential franchise quarterback is now gone. So at their skill positions, for the most part, quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back, at their skill positions, they're very young. The offensive line's coming back, and we're going to leave it at that. As we're going to come back after this break, folks, and me, Jack, and the great Jim Jeffcoat are going to break down what we think the Eagles are going to do this year, and we'll talk a little bit about what we think they should do and probably what they shouldn't do. So, folks, we're going to be right back after this break. Stay tuned with us and find out what we think the Eagles are going to do this year. Easy schedule, guys, this year, something to think about. We'll be right back after this.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Wednesday through Sunday, live to 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer Jack Hirsch, and our co-host for this hour, the great Jim Jeffcoat. So, guys, we're going to get to the Eagles, and again, Jim has been through a rebuilding process from a stable Dallas Cowboy team that was competitive and even championship teams, and he went through the rebuilding with Jimmy Johnson when he took over. And you know, going from the Super Bowl, I think it was 3 years ago, just recently, really, to a total rebuild almost is pretty drastic. And the offensive line, as I said, was hurt. They're coming back. The defense has always played well for the Eagles. They're a lunch bucket team. They'll play anybody tough. But at their skill positions, they pretty much got a rookie quarterback. He played a few games. They got the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, who is an exciting wide receiver. And the defensive backs, they did pick up a couple of those. So at the key skill positions, Jack and Jim, they're basically going through a total rebuild. And even though the line will probably be solid, which they normally do have a solid offensive line, and the defensive line and linebackers are good, what do you expect overall before I start going through the games? Jim, we'll start with you first. What do you expect from the Eagles this year?
Well, I think they'll improve, but I don't think they'll improve as dramatically as you think because they got some issues. First of all, who's their money receiver? Who is their money receiver? Who is in a pinch they can throw to and know that he at least is going to give them a first down?
Well, they'll make it Devonta Smith. I mean, that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's hard on a rookie now. That's my point. And he is, I'm not saying he's not talented. That's not the issue. But he is slight built. And we've talked about that before. And that pound in the NFL now, instead of 16 games, you got 17 games. Can he sustain at a high level for 17 games with his build? because he broke his wrist. He's had injuries in college, and I know Alabama is a the top program, but the NFL is even harder. And
what I don't understand, Jim, the Eagles moved on from Deshaun Jackson, great receiver, but he was hurt a lot, missed his share of games. But if he's good enough now to be playing for the LA Rams, I don't get it. He's good enough to play for the LA Rams, who are prime Super Bowl contender, but not good enough to be with the Eagles. Sometimes isn't it better to just ride a guy out just because he has a history of being hurt? You count on him eventually to get it together. You're just tired of him being hurt, and he's let you down enough times.
And you just said it, Jack. They got tired of him not because they're paying him a very good salary to watch games. He's a spectator. They want him on the field producing. And that's going to be, and I'm not saying Devonta Smith is a tremendous athlete, but it is a different game in the NFL. And can he take that constant pounding? Can he physically?
Yeah, we're gonna find that out. I imagine they'll try to move him around a lot, Jim, to get him a jump on the defensive backs or whoever's covering him, so that they can get him open without him going one-on-one with a physical cornerback. I think that's what I would do anyway. So they start off against the Falcons. Atlanta's an okay team. Philly, first game together as a team. I mean, I would think with Matty Ice there, they do have a new head coach too, but they do have a little bit more experience at the skill positions, even if Julio's gone. I think Atlanta wins the first game. I don't know about you guys.
Jack?
I mean, it's a toss-up. I mean, Atlanta had Kyle Pitts. Some people feel, the tight end. Some people feel he's the best play in the draft. And it's interesting that Atlanta could have taken Devonta Smith, but they went with Kyle Pitts. And it's a game in Atlanta. Not that home field. Good question to Jim. I don't want to say home field is overrated because you'd always rather play in front of your fans, and you'd always rather not pack up and travel somewhere. So obviously players would much prefer to play at home. But the actual game on the field itself, is it that much of a difference? I know you want your fans cheering for you. It motivates you to a degree. But you could also psych yourself out to play well on the road, because I know you guys have an us against them mentality, and that could help out too when you're on the road. So how big a difference is it being, on the road as opposed to home?
It depends on your success as a team a lot, because when you're at home, if you're successful, obviously your fans are more enthusiastic, more into the game. But on the road now, you have less distractions. And that's the beauty of being on the road. A lot of times you have less distraction, and it depends on what type of schemes you're running and how you can be effective, because the noise factor is a difference, especially against some of the better teams in the better venues. We talk about the 12th man at Seattle. That's a difficult place to play. Some of these other places are difficult because of it. Philadelphia is a difficult place to play. But you do have the opportunity to take away distractions on the road.
So who are you picking, Jim?
I'll go with Atlanta.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm going Atlanta too. I think with Matt, like you said, that's the X factor this time.
So they go up against the 49ers. 49ers got a great defense. We know about that. Their offense, depending on who the quarterback is of course going to be a factor. Is it Garoppolo? Is it the young kid coming out of college? I would imagine if Garoppolo's healthy, they'll probably start him at least a few games just to get the kid going in there, on solid ground. So say for this argument, say Garoppolo's there. San Fran has a good running game. I think 49ers win this game too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so all three of us are in agreement there. Dallas, interesting game at Dallas. Always a big rivalry.
Jim's got to take the fifth on this. You can't put him in that position. Max, is he really going to say, even if he thinks the Eagles are going to win, he's going to catch a lot of flack from people in Dallas? You can't put him in that.
Oh, yes, I can.
Come on.
Yes, I can.
I mean,
I can
He'll be honest. But anyway, I think Dallas, of course, we'll see what happens with Zach if he's back, if Dak Prescott, if his leg is better. I think just because the game, again, is going to be close, but Dallas at home, I think they win this game also.
I disagree with you on that. I think Dallas is going to win, but I think it's not going to be close. And I'll tell you why. Look at what Dallas's offensive personnel is, and that's what it'll tell you. They have receivers. They have slot receivers. They have a running back. They can control the game. They have the quarterback. If Prescott is healthy, now you have their offensive line is going to be healthy at that time of year. Can they sustain it? Like I said, for 17 games, who knows? And their defense is going to be better under Dan Quinn. Their defense is going to be
agree
better.
to that. I agree with that. Jack?
I don't think it's going to be close.
You want to pick
I'm gonna go with Philadelphia. I'm getting sick of waiting on Dallas. I'm waiting on them the last few years. You know, you keep waiting, you're waiting. I'm trying to build a relationship with the Cowboys, you know, as far as winners. Every year, Jim, I write down my preseason predictions. I've been doing it since I've been a kid. And Dallas has continuously disappointed me, and I'm not going to get caught up in their potential. A new coordinator. They always get new coordinators, new coaches, new players. And listen, Zach Prescott will have a good year, and all the stats will look nice. And I think we're looking at another 7-9 with Dallas. They'll split with the Eagles during the year. They were 6-10 last year. So they'll be a game better this year. I'm sick of waiting on them.
Tall is coming for you. I'm just like
Tall hasn't helped the Cowboys much the last few years. Is rooting for them. I mean, I got evidence. I could talk to Too Tall about some of his opponents, but Too Tall was a heck of a player. I got to give him that much. I mean, if he was with the Cowboys, now I pick them to beat the Eagles.
I don't want to be rushing the last three games in again. So we got Kansas City coming to town. I'm sorry to say, if you go just off talent, Kansas City would win this game. Any disagreement?
Andy Reid returning to Philadelphia. They can't lose the Chiefs there.
Okay, so the Eagles are hurting here with us anyway. Philly goes against Carolina. I'm going to give them their first win. They got to win one of these games. Carolina is a good, solid team. I think the Eagles rise up, and maybe Jalen Hurts throws a couple touchdowns or runs for one, and they sneak by Carolina. We'll see. I'm going to give them their first win. What do you guys think?
You know, Jim Mack is so hypocritical. Sam Darnold's his boy. He was arguing with me that the Jets have to hold on to Sam Darnold. Put your faith in him. He's going to be an elite quarterback. Now he's a starter for Carolina, and Mack is giving the Eagles their first win of the year.
Yes.
I'll agree with Mack, actually. I'll give the Eagles a win in that spot.
I'm not going to give them the first win because you got McCaffrey there. You got Donald, you got more offensive talent right now with Carolina than you do for Philadelphia. And you talked about being explosive, Jack, earlier. I think that Carolina will be more explosive than Philadelphia at this point.
Well, Jim, I hope this ain't biased, but you got Philadelphia at 0-5 right now. You realize that, right? You haven't had them win a game yet.
You haven't gotten to the Giants or the Washington football team yet. That's when he's going to start giving them wins.
I'm not being biased.
He's mixing up the hate.
I'm being honest. I'm just being honest.
I know. I'm giving you a hard time.
They still got it. They got a new coach, and yes, they have some talent, but is that talent enough to sustain them? Where's their running game at? Where is they have receivers, you said, and but can they sustain? You got still a young quarterback who still has got to get better, and he's still, like you said, unproven.
Yeah, I listen. I can't argue with anything you said there, Jim. I just know they got to win one game in the first 5. They got. They got.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. The Eagles made just very quickly a great move with this second-round draft pick. No one talks about Landon Dickerson from Alabama, a guy who played with Jalen Hurts, and he was a great first-round talent. He would have been, but he's been injured a lot. So that is a major factor, the way they've helped Jalen Hurts, on the offensive line and at the receiver position. So,
So So we got Tampa coming in. It goes from bad to worse. You got Tampa Bay coming in. I don't think too many teams are going to be able to beat Tampa. Never mind the Eagles this year.
Tom Brady has a score to settle with the Eagles, even though they're not the same team. And, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Jim, you would agree with that too.
No, I'm going to pick Philadelphia.
Really?
No, I'm going to pick Tampa. I think you're right. I think Tampa, they're 0-6. They're in the hole now. Yeah, right.
Philly against the Raiders. Again, this is a team they could possibly beat. The Raiders, I don't think John Gruden, this may make some people mad. I don't think he's that great of a head coach. I think he's a good head coach. I don't think he's a elite head coach. It seems like they didn't know where they were going last year. They didn't know whether they were a running team or a passing team. Their defense was they're just all confused over there. I
didn't think it was that great of a commentator on ESPN either. He might be a nice guy, but he bored me. I don't like to hear football become too serious after a while. I kind of like a little entertainment, a little laughter, but listen, the Eagles have to beat some teams. I'll pick the Eagles in that game, but in all honesty, if we were doing the Raiders schedule, I would probably give it a win for the Raiders if we were reversing it. But since we're doing the Eagle thing, I'll go with the Eagles.
Jim?
Are you guys sitting down?
Yes.
I'm going to pick the Eagles too. And I think that Mac is right. I like John as a person, but I question some of his decisions. I mean, he's got some talent over there, but I question the same thing you do. And I don't know if they're going to be as successful as people think. They're a similar place as the Cowboys. We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if he could have 11 quarterbacks starting on the field, he'd do that. I think I don't know about as a head coach. So Philly plays Detroit. If they can't beat Detroit, then the season is over. So there is no reason why they can't beat the Lions just because they're the Lions. So I'm going to get Philly a win here.
Philly a win. I just want to say, editorialize it very quickly. If I'm a college player, I fantasize. If I was a great college player and I was drafted, and if the Detroit Lions drafted me, I think I would cry. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. It's the one place you don't want to go to, the one franchise. They haven't seen a Super Bowl since the Super Bowl began, and they're not going to see one for a while.
What do you say, Jim? You think they could beat the Lions?
Yeah, I think they can beat the Lions.
All right, so we're all in agreement there. So then San Diego comes to town. San Diego is a lot of people are predicting them to give KC a run from last year. I don't know. I think it could be that they
have San Diego. They're LA now.
Yeah, they're well, whatever they are. I'm gonna call them San Diego probably until I die. San Diego goes to Philly.
LA, Mac. They left San Diego. I call them San Diego.
Jack. Okay. So anyway, they're playing the Chargers. So Philly goes in. No, San Diego comes to the Eagles. Everybody thinks that they're going to challenge KC. I'm not so sure of that yet. It could have been a one-year wonder. We'll see. San Diego looks like they're up-and-coming team. I think the Chargers probably beat the Eagles.
I would agree.
So we're all giving them a loss there. Philly plays Denver in Denver. A lot of people feel Denver has a strong team, a good defense. Their quarterback issue is still up in the air. Their running game was okay. I'm just going to give Philly another win here because I think maybe they start getting together here. Maybe they start working together. Maybe the receivers and the quarterback starts getting better. But, man, Denver's going to be a tough one to win if they beat them. So I'm just going to
go with Denver. I'll go with Denver.
I'm going with Denver. Bridgewater throws 3 touchdowns and runs for 1.
There you go. And that's quite the possibility. New Orleans comes into Philadelphia with or without Breeze. The Saints are just a great organization, a great team. They're well established. I'd have to go with New Orleans. I don't care who the quarterback is, Jack.
I'll lean towards New Orleans. I'm interested who's going to be starting, whether it's going to be James Winston or Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston, I've always liked him a lot. If he just wouldn't throw all those darn interceptions, he'd be an elite quarterback. But, yeah.
Jim, you going to give Philly a shot?
I'm kind of with Jack. I think what he said is correct. Is who started in New Orleans? Is it Tyson Hill or is it is it Jameson Winston? Because that's going to affect on how they play. And I think New Orleans is going to win the game, but it's going to be tighter than you think.
Yeah, I listen. That quarterback can play fullback, running back, wide receiver. I mean, he can play anything. That man's a tremendous football player overall. Maybe not the best quarterback, but I'll tell you, I'd love that. I'd love to have him on my team. Philly at the Giants. At the Giants, I think the Giants have a little edge. It all depends on Danny Dimes this year. Make or break year for him to me. I think that the Giants will beat him at home at least. So I would have to go with the Giants here. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to believe they'll split. The Giants will win at home, and then when you get to it later, I'll probably go with the Eagles there.
I'm going with the Giants. I think the Giants are the team that's going to shock people this year. I think Jason Garrett has done a good job with that offense. And like you said, Jones is another year under his belt. And then you got to – that Saquon Barkley is a different –
He's healthy. If he's healthy this year, yeah, they'll have a decent year. Okay, Philly at the New York Jets. Of course, this is a game the Jets, I think we said, might win. But Philly just might as well win as the Jets would. I'll give Philly a win here just because they got to win some games. So
yeah, I think Philly will win this one.
I don't pick against the Jets unless I have to. I lost money on the Jets in Vegas once, Jim. They were playing New England. I knew New England would kick their behind, but I went to the betting parlor and I put my money on the Jets out of loyalty. And loyalty, I found out, didn't pay.
So what do you think? Do you give them a chance to beat the Jets, Jack?
No, I'm going to genuinely go with the Jets under Robert Saleh. They've made improvements. There's a new culture there with the Jets, and they can't beat the Eagles. It's going to be a long season.
Okay. Then Washington comes in. Very interesting game. You got that front four that can chase you down. You got a running quarterback, and you got Fitzmagic on the other side who could throw for 4 touchdowns or throw 5 interceptions, however he feels. At Philly, I'll let Philly split with Washington this year because I don't think they're going to win at Washington. So I'll give it to Philly just to say that they have a chance. Jack, what do you think?
I think they're going to wind up splitting with Washington. I think Washington, I don't want to say is a little overrated, but they are. They have a very good defense. Ryan Fitzpatrick, we could rave about him, but there's a reason he's been with something like 8-9 teams. If he were that good a quarterback, he wouldn't be all over the place. He has a good year, bad year, good year, bad year. And Ron Rivera, too. I don't want to say he's a little overrated as a coach. He's okay as a coach, but he's not one of the elite NFL coaches. So it's a Philly will split with Washington this year. So let me give him a win the first game, a loss later.
Okay, I don't necessarily agree with you about Ron Rivera, but go ahead, Jim.
I agree with what you guys are saying. I think it's going to be a split. I think Washington is going to step back this year. They're really good defensively. They still have issues on offense. And people now had a year to study them and analyze them, and they'll know their weaknesses, and that's what they're going to attack.
I agree. Okay, so the New York Giants go to Philadelphia. It's a heck of a rivalry. The Giants have always found a way to lose to Philadelphia. I don't care if they went to the Super Bowl. You had Cunningham doing a play that they won, and the Giants could have been the best team on the field. But against the Eagles, Jackson, Cunningham, there's something about playing the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. The Giants have problems. I think they're going to lose a heartbreaker here too, and that's just me with experience with the Giants. So I'm going to give the Eagles the win here.
Yeah, I will too. Even if the Eagles are completely out of it and the game means a lot to the Giants, I think the Eagles beat them there. I think it's a big rivalry and it means a lot to the Eagle organization. And I think to knock off the Giants.
I would agree. The Giants have always had difficulties in Philadelphia. I don't know if they're eating too many cheesesteaks at Pat's or whatever.
They're enjoying that food.
Is Philadelphia the roughest place to play just about? Because I've heard from Giant fans, you don't want to go there as a fan and root for the Giants because you put yourself on the real risk.
Exactly. It's a tough place to be.
I mean, even in the heyday of the Cowboys, I mean, Buddy Ryan and Jimmy Johnson, there was always animosity. The Eagles are just, I mean, that is I don't want to say they're a mean organization, but man, them guys, I don't know. It's the whole world.
It's the culture of the city. That's what it is.
Yeah, I want to make a point before when we're talking about teams that are really on the bottom. Jim played for one of the worst teams of all time, your 1-15 Cowboy team, the first year under Jimmy Johnson. I mean, that team was terrible. There were blunders all over the place. And the team, in all honesty, was, I hate to use the word incompetent, but the amount of mistakes made. 3 years later, Super Bowl champs. You went from 1-15, you improved to 7-9. And I remember that 7-9 season. You were kind of getting it together. You were no longer terrible. There was like an upward arc. And then, of course, you had an 11-5 season. And then after that playoff season, we knew, the Cowboys were serious Super Bowl contenders. And then you won 2 in a row. But I think that model maybe could be good for a franchise, let's say, like the Houston Texans. But, of course, there was the infusion of talent that the Cowboys got, which teams don't quite get today. But look at the Miami Dolphins the year before last. They were terrible in the beginning of the year. They were like losing games like 47-0. And now they're, you could call them a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So there's always hope there, right, Jim?
There is hope, but the Dolphins are not a Super Bowl contender.
No, they're not. I agree with that. They're not.
All right, guys, they were 10-6 last year. Tua's going to blossom this year.
Oh, maybe.
Be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
The jury is out on that still, Jack. I didn't see him.
Tua didn't know what he was doing last year. He didn't know the plays, and he was too shy to tell the coach, I don't know what the heck you're sending in.
The true leadership of Tua, not knowing the playbook and too shy to say anything. That makes me feel good if I'm playing alongside of him. So the Eagles go into Washington. Again, I mean, at Washington, I give Washington the edge. They'll be pumped up. Their defense might shut them down. It'll be a close game, but I'll go with Washington just for the split, Jack.
I'll agree. Yeah.
And then finally, Dallas goes to Philadelphia. And it's happened before, Jim. It's happened a lot of times, especially when Dallas had a shot at going to the championship, especially when Dallas had a shot to get in the playoffs. Philly is tough to play. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least that the Eagles upset the Cowboys. On paper, they shouldn't. But, man, when you go to Philadelphia, and I don't know what it is about Dallas and Philadelphia at the end of the year, recently anyway, I give them a shot at beating Dallas at the end of the year.
Let me tell you, they'll go in Dallas with a chance to clinch a playoff spot. They'll go into Philadelphia. They'll lose that game. 2 days later, there'll be a press conference. Mike McCarthy was let go, and Jimmy Johnson is beginning a search for a new head coach.
Okay. Here's what I think. Philadelphia has struggled all year. The players are in their lockers getting ready to go fishing. Dallas will win this game.
Okay.
I think that Dallas will win this game and get into the playoffs. That's just my opinion. I never want to disagree with Jack, but I think.
Oh, that's great. So guys, I'm going to I'll tackle the wins and losses because it's all over the place. A lot more losses than wins, which I would expect for a young team, especially at the skill position. As I said, I think the Eagles have a terrific organization. They have anyway, and they will continue to, as Jim said, they will get better and more competitive, especially at the end of the year. But for right now, I think this year is a learning year for all of them, all the players there working together, the chemistry. We don't know if the quarterback's good or not. We don't know how Devontae Smith will play this year. There's a lot of question marks. I mean, who knows? Stranger things have happened where, a team like this comes up and surprises anybody. That's the beautiful thing about the NFL. But realistically, from what we see from last year to this year, so many major moves, and it takes a while to catch up, the players and the team to catch up to all the moves that happen. This is a record we've had so far. We've had the Bills, and this was without Jim. The first one at 12-5, the Pats at 11-6, and the Jets at 7-9. And I don't think the Eagles will be
7-10. There's a 17-game schedule.
I take one game off just because of the Jets, Jack, and I give them 16 games because I think by the end of the year they're just gonna quit.
That's what we had to talk to Jim about. Next time, should football be played in all types of weather? So I guess you canceled the Jet game because it was too cold out. Okay, so which I like that, Mac. I like that.
You'll kill me. Folks, thanks for joining us. Jim, again, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. We'll break down the Giants season. A lot of big things that are being said about them. It's their third year under Jones, second year under Judge. We'll see what we think they'll do in the NFC East that I think is going to be a little bit better than it was last year, more competitive. And I think it's a make or break year for Jones and maybe for Garrett too. So if they don't improve there, I think a couple jobs may be on the line. We'll see. So folks, thanks for joining us. Jim, pleasure as always. Can't wait to see you again next week. Jack, you know how I feel about you, and I can't say it on the air, so we'll just push on from there. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you Wednesday as we start off a new week. Have a great Sunday, and then pretty soon, football's coming, guys, so